You haven't met me. You haven't, catch me aside, introduce yourselves, because definitely want to know, try and meet everybody personally. And there's, a lot of faces and such, but, try and make everybody feel, welcome and such here. Definitely want to thank Bill Capri for giving us this venue on a gorgeous Wednesday night. Make sure you tip David very heavily so he remembers us. But with that, I've raced against Stuart 25 years, something like that. Back actually, we were racing Wednesday nights at Turtle Club. There was a certain little red, yellow and white boat around here. So he's definitely outrun me many times, outrun a lot of us on the course. I consider him one of the fastest people probably in the country. He does a lot of detail too. Send the check later. Very attentive on the sail trim. He pays attention to a lot of details that I ignore, a lot of us ignore. So I'll let Stuart start going. So thank you, Stuart.
Thank you. Anybody who doesn't know me, feel free to say hi later. Don't talk to anybody else. There'll be some bad stuff. I'm going to just jump right into it because there's a lot of things I want to cover here. This document, I've already found some things I even forgot. I had them in, but this will be available to Scott for the PDF maybe, and you can get it on the website later. All right, we've got 4 general sections. First one is going to be general. Second is going to be upwind. Third, downwind. 4 is reaching. So, I'll read from this. First thing I always look at is conditions. The wind. Is it light? Is it building? Is it puffy? Is it dying? It gives me kind of an idea of what I want to do with the boat, what's going to happen in the next 2 hours racing, 3 hours. Is the water flat? Is the water choppy? It's real important. We're talking about power in the boat. How to get the boat where it has most power as possible. So, my target is tune for the most available power in the lightest conditions. This is first. What's the lightest condition? That's when I want to have the most power. The boat, by design, most of the adjustments that you have will reduce power in the boat. So if you are in a situation where you're too tight, you have less power, you can't make it go faster, especially if the rig is too tight. So you have to say, I want to be on the loose side, because you can always do things to take the power out of the boat. Any questions? All right. Rig tune. I'm going to start with the rig tune. Assumptions. Assume the mast is centered. Assume that the rake and pre-bend on the mast are within your boat's realistic target. That's really important. Just assume those are the case. If not, ask me or someone else to help you. You need to make sure the mast is centered and that the shape of the mast is approximately what is status quo for a fast boat in your class. Tune for the conditions. Anticipate the change in those conditions. Is it going to get lighter or is it going to get heavier? That's going to tell me, or at least what I think about is what am I going to do with the rig as those conditions potentially change. On Wednesday night, it'll be windy, it'll pipe up a little bit, the sun goes down, and then what happens? Dies. Alright, so everybody knows it dies. Alright, so what are you going to do with your boat? You're going to tighten it all up? No, you're going to keep it loose, you're going to use your tools and adjustments, you're going to get through the weather when it's blowing hard, and then sure enough, you want your boat to come alive when the wind dies. So,
hey, Stuart?
Yes, sir.
Mind explaining the benefit of the rake of the mast forward and back?
Well, yes, I can touch base on that now and in the future. Pre-bend and rake are 2 different things. Rake is basically where's the mast related to the center rotation in the boat, or wherever the mast comes out of the hole. But it tends to want to be a little bit aft. And there's a shape in the mast that tends to be a little bit bent aft, and that's pre-bend. And that's related to the sail, how it's cut, and there's a reason that shape is needed. And I'll come right back to that in just a quick second about rate and what I want to call balance. Okay, tune for conditions and anticipated changes. Always tune for the lull. Therefore, imagine the exact settings for the day. Consider setting your boat up 1 notch below what you think is going to be the average condition. If it's going to blow 10, set for 6. If it's going to go 15, consider setting for 10. This 1 notch, usually the boats have notches related to either a half or a full turn on the shrouds. Sometimes it's 2-to-1 ratio, uppers to lowers. Now I know some of you guys aren't racing a boat that has an upper and lower, but work with me there, and I'm going to keep it general. Some have 3 shrouds. I don't like this kind of rules. All right, so always 1 notch below. And the reason is you can always go out on the water and adjust again. But you want to err on the low side. More power in the boat. All right, so sail trim. What do we have with that? Controls and adjustments. We have halyard tension. That's your initial hoist and how tight am I going to make the sail. Both the main, jib, and genoa. You have car positions. That's this lead here. That's going to help put the right shape in the sail. On a boom, on a main, it's not the same as an outhaul. It's not quite the same. Outhaul is different, but we'll get to that later also. Cunningham. Most boats have one on the main. J24 specific, we put one on the genoa. Function the same way. You have the boom vane. And just so you know, halyard tension is draft-oriented, car position is lead-oriented, Cunningham is draft-oriented. It changes the draft and sail, which I'll get to. The boom vane, it changes the shape some, but it also changes how you trim the main. And I'll explain that later. I mean, it is an important tool, and it applies both upwind and downwind. Traveler, again, that's main, that's trim. Backstay. Backstay is your friend. It's your throttle. It's your engine. It touches everything. It's the only one line that you pull, and it changes everything. We will talk a lot about backstay. Okay, barber hauler. Anybody know what that is? Anybody not know what that is? Okay, barber hauler, and we'll get to the details. But normally, sail trim, upwind, is designed. By definition, you have tracks, you have cars, you have positions. So it's designed to try to go upwind as much as you can. But sometimes you're going to reach. You're not going to be able to go upwind. And the barber hauler allows you to take this normal car position and change it. Either forward and back and outward, outbound, out. Because you can't trim. If you ease it, the top's going to open. So what do I want to do? I want to change this lead position literally 3 inches out, 2 inches forward, so I can get the trim back. So usually it's a line that's clipped. It goes through a block on the tow rail or it goes through a stanchion. So we'll talk about that in more detail. Crew weight. It is a tool. It is very important. It's bigger than you realize. That's part of your adjustments that you can make on the boat. Questions? Okay, general issues, upwind. You know, you have the initial input, or setup, excuse me, and what I want to describe it is balance. What is balance? Balance is a state when sailing, I didn't get this from the book, by the way, where the power in the forward sail is comparable to the power in the main. The goal is to have a boat that sails with the least input from the rudder. Rudder, drag, slow. So what is balance? Let's look at this boat here. You have a head sail and a main. The boat has a keel. The boat has a rudder. This boat, by definition of the keel and other aspects, but it tends to have a place where it will rotate. It's going to rotate, center of rotation on the boat. Balance is the forward sail producing it. producing the same amount of force as the mainsail that keeps the boat trying to go one direction. If you have more power in the forward sail, the genoa or the jib, than the mainsail, well, by definition, you have more force here. Well, it's going to make the boat want to go to lead. Nose is going to want to go down. You're going to have to keep pushing the nose up. That's rudder movement. Weatherhelm is much more typical. You get out there, you sail on, the boat wants to turn up, you're always pulling. You're always pushing the nose down. You're always pulling. Well, that means the main is producing a little more power after the center of rotation, so it's wanting to turn the nose up. So balance is trimming both sails to achieve a situation or to achieve a balance. Basically, you want to be able to not have to move the rudder that much. And so there's lots of different ways you can change the power in both sails, but this is what's important, is balance. So does everybody understand what leeward and weatherhelm is? Okay. Heel is also another issue. You want some heel. Too much heel is not good for a lot of reasons. The boat's not working, it's sliding sideways, but you do need some heel. If you can sail a boat really flat, then you're really, really good, because it's really hard. But you want the boat as flat as possible because you need the keel to track. The keel is what's taking the boat's tendency to want to go sideways, pushing the boat forward. So the deeper the keel, the more you can sail upward. Let's see. I think I covered. Where's Scott? Yeah, okay. We're right on schedule. That's A. A's gone. Any questions in general, in the general idea of what we're going to talk about? No? Okay. I can erase some of this, but we'll go ahead and start talking about a couple of things. One of the first things I look at upwind is you set your cars normally where they are. What do you guys look for in the head sail? Do you actually get down as a driver and look at it? Well, what I do is initially look at the distance. Say you're trimmed in, you're going upwind, everybody's happy. All right, I'll look at the distance between the end of the spreader and the genoa, and the distance between chain plate and near the lead. Ideally, you want those to be about the same distance. Not exactly, but say 6 inches by the spreader, 4 inches, but similar down low. What this is a potential balance. If you were trimmed in and this is touching right here, now again, this is condition dependent. So I'm going to talk more in a general sense of 12 knots. If the distance up here is much greater than the distance down here, what is that telling you? Anybody got a...
Spilling it out of the top. Twist.
You got twist, and you're basically spilling out of the top. So depending on how you feel on the helm, is that what you want? Is that the desire? So why don't I just talk real quick about how to change these distances here and here. And that is with the lead, the genoa lead. If you look at this lead, this is an angle. It has two components: the amount of force you're pulling on the leech and the amount of force you're pulling on the foot. And let's say you're doing 45, 45 and it's equal, just for academic exercise. Well, if the top is open, meaning it's, I'm not following my notes, but that's fine. If it's open, then that's probably going to also mean that this is tight. This is less distance. How would I want to close this top? Well, I have too much force on the foot and not enough force on the leech. So if I move the car forward, now I'm going to have more force on the leech and less force on the foot. So I'm going to close the top of the sail and I'm going to open up the bottom of the sail a little bit. So if it's the other way around and it's really tight here and it opens up on the bottom, well, the inverse applies. I move the car back so I can pull more on the foot and less, and they are very slight angle changes, but less force on the leads, therefore the leads will open up. So that's the basics of a headset. You want to start, balance, and then follow with all the other things you do about the boat feel, but then you have to decide if the rig's right, then what do I need to do with the jib leads? And again, that's how to adjust it. So let me catch up to my notes. And you can tell I'm a little nervous, but it's okay, I'm not. Any questions?
Stuart?
Yes, sir.
The thing I was taught to look at was the telltales on the forward edge of the sail.
Yeah, good point. I was just reading that. What the telltales will do will give you an indication of this balance. If here's your telltales, and you have one on the front and there's one on the back, so let's draw a window, and there's this other one that's this. So, and you usually have a set here, a set here, a set here, high, medium, low. If the sail is balanced, if it's trimmed properly, top to bottom, the best it can, you can take the boat and you can luff it up. If you luff it up, what happens with the inside telltale is it'll start to do this. It'll show you that the air is luffy. Well, you have to get your crew to help you, because you really need to look at all three of these at the same exact time. But if it luffs first here and not here, sometimes it'll luff first low and not high. Well, that's an indication that this balance is improper. So you ideally want, when you luff, that all three start to feather up at the same time. And that's telling you that your angle attack on the whole sail is proper. Anybody need me to explain that a little more? It's hard for me to draw some of this because I'm not an artist.
Okay. Top telltales are breaking first. What does that mean?
That means that the top is too open. The wing is very flat compared to the wing on the bottom. It's open.
Okay.
And so that means that I need to move the car forward to close the top a little bit in the sail. And so this is an exercise that we might do 2 or 3 times just to double check. And be careful when there's big waves and other things that happen, because it can mess all that up. So sometimes you have to go, here I go again. And make sure the trimmer has got the sail trimmed in properly. So your main focus is right up here, because this car position has a bigger effect at the top of the sail than at the bottom. So if you're going to check anything, check the top tail there. Nice call.
Stuart, is your priority, though, to have the least amount of weather or leeward helm? That's what you're trying to optimize.
In the setup, absolutely.
Okay, so if the top telltale breaks and you're good and balanced, let it break.
Yes, but there's some other things that are part of all that.
Okay.
But if it is breaking, what I try to do is set it to where it's even, and then I go through the next set of steps, and then if I really want to, just go one hole forward, just because I think that'll be okay, But yeah, it doesn't have. This is not a science. It is, but it isn't. There's personal styles and personal things that you find you like. Okay. Cunningham. I don't need to talk too much about Cunningham on a main, but I'll talk a little bit about it. On a jib. Your higher tension gives you draft normally at 40, 50%, 40%. You get to 30%. You have a curve in the sail, and the draft is basically the deepest point in the sail. That's the wing, and that's the shape. In flat water, the draft can be further back. sail's a little bit narrower in shape, there's less drag in that shape.
So when you say draft further back, you mean that 1/3 point?
Well, wherever the deepest point is, that's where the draft is. It can move forward and aft in the sail, and it depends on how your tension from top to bottom, that's your general tension. But we have a Cunningham, basically we can pull, in addition, on the fly, we can put even more tension in the luff, and then that way I can move this draft forward. The deeper draft forward is going to be more power. It's also more drag. So when you're dealing with a wavy situation, you're actually pulling the Cunningham on and off, depending on the waves and what the driver's doing. The driver's driving up and down. So there's coordination between someone on the front of the boat and the driver and all of that. So this is a little specific to a J24. It's really nice when you don't be around a leeward mark in a big mess and you don't get the halyard where you want it and it's really loose. And you don't have to pull the halyard up under tension. You can just say, oh, pull the Cunningham on really tight with you. So you can immediately get the shape back versus taking people off the rail and having them grind and having to tack just to get the jib back up and all of that. Okay, any questions? I'm not that good. Never mind. Okay. Okay, upwind. Let's talk about depowering. Let's say you've gone through the process, you're comfortable with the boat, you think the conditions are going to build a little bit, and sure enough they start to build. And someone tell me the kinds of things you can do with the boat to depower the boat. Just
Use the main.
use the main, that's one.
Add some backstay.
Add some backstay.
Move the car back, I'm sorry.
Yeah, move the car back, open up the top. Now, let's just throw this, if you're overpowered and you may want backstay, but you know that the jib is, it's just, you just want to ease that. You can say, well, you don't normally want to move that car on the same tack that you're on. So you say, move the car on the other side 1 hole forward. So by the time you tack over, guess what? Now I got that fixed and I can move this one. And I'm sure you've all done that. Okay, pinching. If you're overpowered, you can pinch a little bit. That'll work temporarily. That's great. You're happy. Press it back down, pinch up. But pinching is kind of slow. It doesn't really, the boat, you're taking the punch out of the boat. But for short term, that's one way to depower. Big puff coming, pinch a little bit before it gets here. That way it doesn't throw you, lay you over. Press, the second thing is you can press the nose down, but ease the jib and ease the main just a little bit. Now you're not going to point as high, but you're going to go a lot faster. So you can compromise. You're not going to point so high, but if I'm gaining 2/10 of a knot, then I'm still in good shape. So ease everything a tiny bit. Car positions, obviously, really make a car change for the next tack and just say, we're getting overpowered. Let's go ahead and move that car back. Backstay. Let's talk about the backstay. Time to erase. Scott, what's my time? He's not there. He's not there.
Really?
Where is he?
Bar.
He's got to be talking to
He's at the
somebody.
bar.
He's talking to somebody.
6:43.
It's okay.
9 minutes.
5 minutes?
9.
9? Thank you.
6:44.
Okay. Most of the rigs that we sail with are fractional. Everybody know what that means?
You got it to the top of the.
Yeah. Masthead here is the head stay goes all the way to the top. I don't know much about all that, but it seems weird to me.
It's a cruising thing.
Yeah, it's you got to adjust it with different tools, different shrouds and stuff. Okay, but fractional, that's real important because when you have a backstay, this allows top of the mast to bend. When you pull the backstay on, the top of the mast bends. what does that do? Pulls the headstay tighter. It pushes the middle of the mast forward. You're basically putting this mast and bending it like it's the shape of a C.
So you're flattening the main?
If you think of the main and the leads, you think of this distance and it's X. And now it is Y. It's longer. So you're pulling that main. It's got some shape to it. You're basically pulling it tighter so it's making the main narrower. Now you do have lower shrouds. And on the J24 and most boats, the uppers and the lowers are usually a ratio of 100 to 50, meaning 2 to 1. The lowers are tight, but they're not extremely tight, especially in the average conditions. Now, when it starts to get windy, just crank everything. Whatever, more, just put more. Yeah, because the boat's doing this and it's going to fall apart. But, so when I pull this backstay on, I'm putting more tension on the headstay, which is changing the draft in this forward sail. I'm also pushing the mast forward, which is reducing the draft. And this, in effect, with your headsail, when you pull the backstay on, I just find it real easy to understand. Sail a boat, look, have someone pull on the backstay as hard as they can, and watch what happens. Watch both sails. Watch the top of both sails. And you'll see the tops open up. And then you say, let the backstay all the way off, and you'll see the tops close. So it is the one tool that can change, what I call it the throttle. It literally changes the shape of your sails dynamically. Not only in the leads, but also in the shape here. Also in the draft. All three things are being affected with that movement. Now, one of the things you have to remember, especially in these big puffy days, is you pull the backstay on really hard. Every time you pull the backstay on, what's happening with the main?
Depowers.
And what else happens? If the main's on center line, here's your boat, and you pull the backstay, you're technically, this is distance X. Now you're going to have a different distance. Even though up there it's only 2 inches, this distance is substantially longer. Now you got Y. So if this distance is longer, what happens is the main will open up. And you can test this out. So every time you pull the backstay on, you have to trim in the main again, retrim the main. Every time you ease the backstay off, you have to ease the main. And you can do that as an exercise. You can literally pull it on, look at it. You can see the boom. You'll see it fall off the center line by an inch, inch and a half. So the jib, not so much. You don't have to kind of worry about that. It's the main that has a big effect, and that's because it's on that big stick thing that you're moving around. Another thing to remember with the backstay, a lot of people, they'll get going, and I find myself, same thing. It's a big puff, you pull it on, okay, that's great, and then sail along going, something doesn't feel very good. Something doesn't feel what's wrong with this boat. And you realize the pressure's dropped another, it's back to normal, and you still have full backstay on. And if you give 10 boat lengths before you remember that, you're going 3/10 of a knot slower than your competitor who's eased the backstay right away. So every time you pull it on, the next thing you need to put in your mind is, when am I going to ease it? Because the person that can ease it quickly, because the conditions are puffy here in the lake especially. Well, when you ease it, then you maintain that 2/10 of a knot more than your competitor. So anytime that line's touched, it is definitely important to know when to repower back up. So I'm not going to look at my script here. Okay, man, we moved. Any questions at the moment?
What about the wavy conditions with the backstay? Because if you have that backstay full horizontal in wavy conditions, I mean, big waves, then what are you going to get?
Okay, that's a good question. Now, with waves, times you need more power. Because the wave is going to punch you and you need more power. But a lot of that can be controlled by how you drive through the wave. You want to actually power the boat up as you come into the wave and then do your little S turns. But what happens is when you pull the backstay on, you are inducing more twist in both of the sails. And there is a section on twist later. What the twist does, as the boat starts to hobby up, forward and out, you start hitting waves, the top of the mast is starting to move a foot, 2 feet at times. You know, when you get that, it's moving 3 feet. Well, think of an airplane wing that's happy, and then all of a sudden it's not happy, and then it's, whoa, I mean, I'm stalled, now I'm, you know. So with the twist, if you pull the backstay on, the twist will actually allow that sail in general to work throughout all of that movement. So sometimes the backstay you pull on because of power issues, but also that's a little trick to say, I'm just going to open up the sails because I have a set of waves I'm going to go through. And in general, if you're going to be in real wavy conditions, the twist is important. Because just think of the apparent wind, which we're going to get to later. Just think of the amount of change in the apparent wind. You're moving along at 6 knots, 5 knots, happy. You hit the first wave. Well, you could have a 1 knot change. When you move 2 feet, 3 feet, you literally can go from up there, apparent wind can go from 3 knots to 9 knots, or 3 knots to 6 knots. I mean, it's rapid change because of all that motion. So in general waves, you want to be potentially more open, which also allows you to push the nose down because you want to be able to get through the waves. And that puts the sail more in trim because it's open, but you're sailing lower than you normally would. Does that make sense? And then don't forget to undo it. Undo it as soon as you're back in flat water because you're going slow. That's something that's real easy to forget.
But Stuart, but on the other hand, you would take more waves and you want more power.
Well, that's why you can pull the Cunningham on your Genoa and move the draft forward and generate more power. That's a little trick. So, pull it on, get through the waves. As soon as you're done, ease it off.
So, but to get away with that, you have to fall off a little bit to get more power. Right?
You might as well get power before you hit the waves. Yeah, hit the wave, but yeah, once you're in the wave, you press down. If you're lucky, you can see that you can just steer through. Sometimes there are big waves and the boat just somehow goes, wow, how did you do that? And then sometimes you get the first one, and then the second one goes boom, and then the third one goes boom, and you come to a stop. Well, normally the skipper starts to just complain at that point in time. Well, be aware and be willing to just nose it down and get the speed back up. Don't ever pinch in big waves. You just have to press the nose down. And sometimes you just have to do it with brute force with the rudder. It's not worth time to make all these little adjustments. But if you do have a Cunningham, that's what we use it mainly for is in big waves. Is we can pull it forward, get the power, hit the first wave, the second wave. Once we're out of the waves, you ease the draft into the Genoa back. And then you might do a little ease on the main trim.
Cunningham in the main too?
Yes, but that's more of a general setting. If one, upwind. Okay, I've got backstay on. Well, let's go ahead and I basically flattened out this part. Well, now I want to move that draft a little bit further and just make it a little flatter. So if it's big wind, Cunningham. Just go ahead and put Cunningham. You can invert things. If you start to see a bubble in your main, and because of the Genoa and the pressure in between the slot is starting to get too much and it's starting to push the main and it inverts up in this area right here, well then you can pull the Cunningham to pull that out. Pull that out a little bit. Yes. Yeah. When you turn downwind, you have to remember to ease that off. What's our time, guys?
On to the next section.
Okay. All right. I didn't really talk much about, before I go to downwind, sheeting, Traveler, main. Does everybody know a little bit about the Traveler? You got your main sheet, you have your Traveler, which basically allows you to change where this boom is on center line without changing the tension that's on the leech. Because your main sheet stays the same. Your main sheet's sheeted in and you got a nice shape in the sail. This is like the flap on an airplane. You see the flap come down, the flap come up. So the angle of attack isn't changing. Well, it is slightly. But what you're basically doing is you're taking and letting a little less air stay in the main. You're going to just ease the Traveler, which is opening up the sail, but the leech tension, the sheet tension is the same. So when you have little puffs that come, and little puff comes and it's not too bad, well, if you ease that Traveler a little bit, then you won't have to take the rudder and adjust, because as the pressure comes, the main's going to power up. You're going to get more power after the center rotation, and the boat's going to want to turn up. So if I see the puff coming, and you have a good crew that says puff in 3, 2, 1, well, ease the Traveler a little bit. That way you can maintain forward speed, less rudder, less drag.
The Traveler eases the leech of the main equally instead of the sheet, which would open it.
Right, if you do the sheet, then I'll just do a little illustration here. Yeah, the Traveler doesn't change the distance between the sheet and the boom. It's given. So you maintain the shape of that sail, you just change the angle of attack a little bit. We have the boom bang. All the boom bang does is
Stuart, before you leave the Traveler,
yes,
when you travel down, should you need to make any change to the head sail?
normally not. If it's kind of, you might go a little bit into pinch mode just to kind of take a little bit off of the jib or the genoa, but the mainsail is what's going to cause the weather helm. And I don't know, I just said boats, but the mainsail is what's going to cause the weather helm. Very rarely do you have leeward helm. If you work your boat well enough, you're going to get your car positions where you know you're always looking for that initial, I've got a little weather helm. So when a puff comes, if you ease the Traveler, you're basically isolating that aft sail, which is going to induce that turn. You know,
So it's only temporary anyway.
yeah, in a big blow, and yeah, sometimes you just say, bump it out is what I say. I want the trimmer to go bump, 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 just that much, just so I can press through, and that means I have to pitch less. So it's not major things, but yeah, now that's fine tuning. If you've got a trimmer that can do that, and you can bring it right back in after that, that's even that much more speed that you can maintain. Now, boom bang, main trim. All the boom is doing, the boom bang is, what it's doing is it's keeping the boom from going up. Most times you don't even need the boom bang going up. Now it does also change the shape of the boom a little bit. It'll bend the boom, especially on a J22, these smaller sails. It'll bend the boom down, which is again increasing the distance and flattening the main. But on bigger boats it doesn't work. It's not that important. As long as you're not having to ease the sheet and the puffs and you're able to use the Traveler, well, the bang is basically irrelevant. By definition, you're not easing the sheet. You can go and test this out by being in a little more heavy air, take the bang off, trim the sail how you like it, and then get behind it so you can look at the leech and then ease the leech and watch two things. Where do you think the boom's going to go, and what do you think is going to happen up here if the bang is off? And by up, it's also, that's the top. You just in light air, take your hand and just take the boom and go a foot and look up there. And then pull it really hard down, and you'll see that that's what's controlling the shape of the leech.
That's if you use the sheet.
Excuse me?
That's if you use the sheet, not the Traveler.
Without the without the boom bang on. So what the boom bang does is called vane cheating. When it gets, especially when it's real puffy, meaning you need radical changes real quick. It's big, it'll blow 15, but it blows 20 for 5 seconds, and then it blows 15. The traveler's not going to be enough. You ease the traveler, the boat's still going to round up. Well, that's when you need the boom bang on. So now, I may have it traveler down just because the whole time I'm traveler down now. I mean, that's the new balance. It's the traveler's down. But the big puff comes, I'm going to blow the sheet, and I'm going to ease it 3 or 4 inches. Well, the boom bang keeps the boom down, which maintains a reasonable shape in your leech. But now I can swing the door. I can swing the flap way open. But sometimes you'll see a boat out there and the main's just doing this, just fluttering. Now you're sailing on the genoa or the jib only. And then when it's windier than that, then you're usually out of control. But, you know, it's okay to have the main flopping for a little while, but the idea is to, all right, now, okay, it's flopping, now what, can I tweak it? Oh, that backstay. I pull that backstay a little more, and then I pull the main in a little more. You can get it to where, yeah, I'm using, guess what, I'm actually sailing sometimes only on the back 2 feet of the leech. That's it. That's all I'm trying to keep working. I don't care about the front. I don't care anything. As long as I can get the back of the leech not shaking. And, yeah, well, that's... Boom bang is important, but only real heavy air. And that's when you have to do radical adjustments to keep the boat from being on its ear. Okay. Any questions?
The sails that have a foot that is attached to the boom, as opposed to sails that are open.
My opinion, I think they did that so it's easier to put it on the boom and take it off. You're still going to end up with the same potential adjustment. You can make it loose, you can make it bigger. Maybe downwind you can make it more loose than one that has, you know, that's running in the track. Yes.
What's he, I missed what he had
About a boom, a main that doesn't have a slot, it's loose-footed.
Oh, loose foot.
The only thing I can see there is you can really make it loose downwind. You can go beyond what the cloth is going to limit you. Maybe I'm wrong, but does that make sense?
I think it's easy for a boat, I know.
It's easier to load on a boom, yes. Okay. Everybody ready for downwind?
Yes.
Yes? Anybody bored? Yes? Drinks?
Drink break.
Go ahead if you all want to take a quick break. What time is about downwind. Again, the main goal is balance. Balance. Big transitional time on the boat. You know, you think, okay, I got to get the chute up. That's important. But there's other things that are even more important, especially if the wind is piping up and blowing pretty hard. You're taking the boat in an upwind time, you don't need to rush, you need to try to get everything breathing. You get the chute away from the boat. The more you pull on it, the harder it seems to get to work. You just take your time. The main sheet is not a big issue. The boom bang's not a big issue because in general, you're not gonna have a lot of those adjustments made. So let's just talk about in heavier air, what's really going on and what I think about. And this translates into boat links. If you can get a good weather set and have the boat in balance, get it in balance within almost an instant, that translates into 2 or 3 boat links on the boat behind you. It's very, very important. It's a chance to really get some legs. All right, upwind, heavier air, usually the vang's on. You sheet it in. When you turn this mark, you're going to ease your main sheet out. What's going to happen to the main if the vang stays tight? Can you imagine? It's tight. This ratio, this is not a true circle. Some things are a little bit in front of the mast, some things are a little behind the mast. So as that boom opens up, and guess what, Mr. Backstay, it's on tight. Well, if you ease it, the top of the mast changes, which puts more leak tension in the main immediately, and you haven't eased the boom bang, and you ease it, and next thing you know is you rip your main right in two. It doesn't necessarily always happen, but I've seen it happen. So, in heavier air, when you're reaching the weather mark, one of the things you have to remember is, I think, very important, ease the vang, but recleat it. Ease it 6 inches or 5 inches, but recleat it, because you still need the vang on downwind. It's very important, but you need to give it some room to breathe. Because as the backstay comes off, the mast moves forward, it changes, release tension, and this is real important to finding balance quickly downwind. So I usually say ease it 4 or 5 inches and recleat it. Backstay still on, but that's before I made the turn. So that's done, I can forget about it. Now, a lot of times we race and there's a little offset mark. This could be 100 feet. It gives you time to do some pre-adjustments before you go downwind. But if you, in Wednesdays we don't, well, we have that kind of down here, some kind of thing.
I don't know what it is either, so.
But it's still
Finish mark.
It's comic relief.
Yeah, it is. But upwind we don't have this, so you need to be in a position to figure out how to turn very quickly and go straight downwind. That's important. Drifting along over here for a while, then going, oh, that's not good. So focus, downwind, downwind, downwind. So as you reach that 2 boat length zone,
3.
no, you get in there. Get further. This is not a rules seminar. Not a rules seminar.
It's a speed.
I want speed all the way to the mark. But go ahead and say, I'm done. Ease the backstay off. Be done with it. If you round the mark and, like me, 50% of the time I'm going, dang it, I forgot. Yeah, but it's important. That will allow balance in the main as soon as things start to happen. So let's move on. About balance on the main and trim off the wind. Not even talking about the spinnaker yet. You're downwind. The vang is very important because now here's the boat and your boom's way out here and you pull the sheet. Well, the sheet doesn't have a vector of a downward pull on the leech very much. You have a lot of force, you have a lot of angle here. You can pull it this way, but you can't induce a force that's going to affect the top or the leech, whether it's going to be open or closed. So this is a good exercise. Just go downwind, just don't even have the chute up, and then have someone. But you pull the vang on very tight, but look up there, especially if you're training someone in that zone. Ideally, you have this boom, and you have your battens. And what you want to do is try to get this top batten to be parallel with your boom. So, if too far open, it'll be, if you look up, you can kind of get underneath the boom and you can see, okay, it's open. A lot of times you'll find that the tendency is it to be too far, too close, too much vane, especially when you're coming off of an upwind to downwind. If you don't adjust the
And why is that a problem, Stuart?
because that is a main that's stalled. You're not having a main that's producing as much power in the boat as possible. It's improperly trimmed, is what I'm saying. And a lot of times the transition will be 3, 4, 5 boat lengths before someone finally goes, oh, I gotta fix that. And again, I'm pushing for every inch I can get, because it's easy to go backwards in a sailboat. It's not easy to go forward. It's real easy to go backwards. So really optimizing all of these things. You have to work with your crew. And it takes a lot of practice, but if you can do these things at the right time, that's 2 boat lengths, and 2 boat lengths at the top can correlate downstream to options. You know, you can recover from other mistakes.
You confuse this whole matter a little bit. Are you adjusting that bathroom by using the vane to bring it?
Absolutely. Because what the vane can do is it can induce, it can make the tip, it can make this boom either go up or down, because that's all the vane does, is it pulls down on that main, on the boom. So if I ease this, you don't even change the sheet, but because the sheet's angle is so low, this boom will immediately go up, and you can practice this. And then if you pull the vane tighter, you're going to pull the boom down. Well, if you ease, you're going to basically induce a very open shape if you come up, and if you pull this down, then it's going to be a much tighter shape. So if a lot of times you look up and the top telltale stalled and you basically see the top of the sail like this. My target on a 24 is to always have these streaming and maybe a tiny bit of stall, just a tiny bit closed. Better than being a little open, because obviously open is spilling out air. Okay, so my goal is to have this working as soon as possible. And if the chute's not up, you really need to have this working. Okay, so the next item. Any questions?
What about Cunningham and alcohol? Something you eventually do?
So all of that, yeah, on the way up, I think the out-haul, downwind, whatever. You know,
Some
I mean,
people tell me they never change it at all.
well, I know, it's probably the most talked about thing you can do, and it does the least for anything. It's going to give you a little more depth and technically, you know, like Pedro. Pedro, oh, he's not here. Poor Pedro. What?
He's a sheep.
But technically, he's correct. Technically, he knows how to make a boat go the fastest, because he does every one of those things all the time. It's really to be a pain when you're his crew. Yes, ease it so it gives you another inch, but it's technically a little more power. Okay, any other questions?
So this does more than what you outlined?
Oh, absolutely. This is everything. The outhaul is just tiny.
Even smaller increments, sometimes we use the main hagger of that.
To ease it. Oh, absolutely. That's another good point. I mean, yes, if you really want to get extravagant, ease the main halyard to 2 inches. And that's just basically giving that sail more curve. It's going to produce more power. For me, I can't afford to take a crew off the rail to even mess with that. We're going to use the crew weight much different, but on a big boat, can y'all ease the main halyard a little bit, you know? Sorry.
Stuart, is this turning a mark and then going to a broad reach on a
Definitely.
turn, or just
Dead.
we're running right now, all this center?
Immediately run and make the turn and get on the inside of your competitor. If you're right behind someone, turn and get inside of him. Turn deeper than he. Establish your position.
If you use the main housing too much and you use the alcohol too much, don't you end up like reducing the sale
Technically,
area?
area,
A little bit?
yeah, technically, but the bigger problem is when you forget to raise it up,
Put
you
it
go back, then you really screwed everything up. Sometimes don't touch it is better. I mean, for me, keep it simple.
Gotta know what your crew can do.
Yeah.
So how about depowering? You got heavy-
Okay.
heavy-
Okay, I got a depowering. Let me push through real quick the spinnaker, and then we'll go to depowering. Okay, the spinnaker, generally, my goal is full horizontal. I don't care. If it's light air, it's gonna be a little lower. If it's heavy air, maybe a little up. But start here. I don't know if you guys have a spinnaker with no tweakers, but on the J24 we have tweakers. Anybody not know what tweakers are? You have a sheet and a guide, and what the tweakers do is induce angle. They allow you to pull down. They allow you to change this angle of attack both on the guide and the sheet, which will do a few things for you when it comes to depowering. The tweaker on the weather side, there's another thing that the pole has is a floor guide or a downhaul, actual downhaul. Everybody kind of know what that is? Yeah. Well, if you have a tweaker on the boat and the tweaker is pretty far forward, it'll have more downward vector. You can almost not have a floor guide or a downhaul. If it's further back, then your angle is too great. You can't pull the pole down. I like the floor guide because I don't want that pole moving 1 inch. If it moves 1 inch, then that is energy not going into the boat. In lighter air, it'll tend to do even more bouncing than you realize. In heavier air, the boat will shake and it'll do the bouncing. But I like to sail very deep, and it's just a pet peeve of mine, but if that pole is moving, I want it tight because I want all that energy going into the mast, going into the boat.
So you're saying the tweaker's not far, you can't get far enough, gotta have a downhaul.
Absolutely. If you really want to go without a downhaul, they consider moving your tweakers another foot forward. And
Like a J22.
a J22 is a good example. For your foredeck's it's one less thing they can mess with, but I don't know. I still look at the J22s out there and I see some of these poles doing this stuff. I'm going, I don't know, guys, but I'm coming after you.
This displacement.
Yeah, because, well, if that pole goes up, that means that power's not going into the boat. All right, so what's next? In lighter air, the height, okay, in a sense, you basically have a big Genoa. It works the same way. You have a luff and you have a leech. And what you want to do is have the pole height at the point where, in a normal trim, that the flue and the tack are at the same level. In heavier wind, they'll tend to be higher. In lower wind, they'll tend to be lower, but you want them to be level. Because that's maximum power, maximum shell shape. If you want to depower, what you can do is if you lift the pole tip up, it will allow this leech up here, it will allow it to open up. Because if you pull the luff tighter, you make it here, obviously the leech is going to open up. It also works, it's a little tricky. If you open up, if you put the pole higher, you reach a point beyond what the sail's normal balance is, and you can affect this leech. Now, before I get, we're already back, basically down to power and depower. How would you depower a spinnaker? Anybody have some ideas?
House it.
Yeah.
Pull it in tight.
Where'd he go? That is correct.
We're gonna sheet tweaker.
Okay, the sheet tweaker. Normally the weather tweaker is down and the sheet side is up. You pull this down to induce your angle to help control the pole and it's moving around. And then the more forward it is, the harder it gets. You'll have to play with that. But the more forward the pole is on your sailing angle, then the lower this tweaker is going to be. It should always be adjusted depending on how deep you're going or how tight you're reaching. On a reach, the weather tweaker is going to be real high. Lure tweakers always loose. But if I want to depower the sail, what happens if I pull, assuming that the trim is the same, I pull this tweaker down, what happens to the sail?
Closes that.
Closes the top. You think of it as a stall, and you think that could even make the boat turn more, but guess what? It's in front of the mast. So it actually doesn't induce weather hound, it just is a depowering effect because you're closing off the flow of that wind and you're making it kind of stall on the back, but that's a good tweaker down. It's also stability. It keeps the sail from wanting to get high. What happens on broaches are two things, but in general you have too much power in the top of the rig, but on a weather broach you get too much power in the main. And I can't go into all the details, but there is a trick. But if you ease the vane, what does that do to the main and the trim? It opens up the top immediately. You blow the vane. Well, a weather broach is turning this way because there's too much power in the main. The boat's overpowered. The rudder can't keep up with it. You flop over. You also have the case of a Chinese broach or a weather broach. And I'm going to talk about that here in just a minute. But there's two other points. How else do you depower the chute? Ease the trim. You can over trim, which is in effect the same way that you're pulling the tweaker down. Tweaker's going to induce stability. To over trim is just to, the driver's going, dude, would you drive the boat? I'm just back here holding on to a rudder. I'm done. You're driving the boat, not me. Ease it quick. What about the pull? Quick adjustment. Forward. Never release it. Never let the guy run. Because that will be, you ever seen those boats that are sailing with this big sail thing hanging out over here? Yeah, you don't want that to happen. Once it's around the head stay, you're lost. But if you have a good trimmer and a good driver that have worked together, those things can happen real quick. In heavy air, it's real tricky because you've got to ease it, but you can't lose it. But
what about lowering the outboard end, or do you always try to keep it at
I only lower the outboard end, this end.
No, to depower, because that'll depower as well.
Absolutely. What it'll do is it'll pull the luff a little tighter and open up the leads. But normally I only if really.
No, I'm talking only if you got it forward and it's still.
Yes. Well, that's what I'm saying. If it's, let me just finish. I'll come right to that. So sometimes you can ease that pole forward just 2 feet. And what does that do? It changes the angle of attack and it allows less air in the wing. And you can spill out air real quick. Also, that has to be coordinated with the driver. Now, pole height, reaching, and light air, this is where it applies. If it's heavier air, you're going to reach, it's going to get tighter, it's going to get tighter. Well, you drop the pole tip. Now, also in very light air, pole tip low. You need the shape of the spinnaker, which is, so I'm talking symmetricals, not even talking asymmetricals, but you need the shape of the spinnaker to become more like a Genoa. So you need to really try to tighten this leading edge as much as you can, get the pole down, and that's going to allow you to sail higher on the wind. And it gets to the point where you'll trim the chute, and the chute will almost be touching the boat. And you're doing the best you can at that point. With a symmetrical chute, there's not much more you can do. The main will just be going, anyway. Okay. Yes, sir.
We've got a mark on the track and the pole on where it hits the mast. It's always in the same spot, right? There are times when you set it higher or lower.
We have 2 rings on our mast.
I mean, I don't think you're going to move it while the chute's up, but I mean.
Well, actually, yes, you can. Yes. The lighter there's some debate among J24 sailors, but forget that. Basically, to keep these clews even, in lighter air, this one's going to want to sag. So eventually, you drop the pole, but now you're losing projection because it's going. So then you move the pole down to the lower ring. So now you get maximum projection, another 2 or 3 inches. And then from there, you can only drop the pole tip more. So in really light air, your pole's going to be lower. Some of these boats have a track on the mast itself, and you can just move it wherever you need.
Ours does too, you can slide up and down.
So move it to where you get maximum projection, and your clues are even. And I like a 4-guy downhaul. That you've got to have, in my opinion. Now, just a side note, anytime you're jiving and anytime you're changing, unless the 4-guy or the downhaul is connected to the mast itself, it's forward of the mast in a block, so even that much. That means when you do a swing, the radius changes, so the more you pull it back, the tighter the downhaul is going to be. So what I'll do before a jive, and when we were doing down, downwind, just like the boom bank, ease the downhaul 6 inches and recleat it. That way when you jive, you're not restricting what the foredeck can do. You can't get it in the window anymore. So give him enough room, but don't have it uncleated unless it's really light. Because if it's heavy, and he loses it, there goes the pole. There he goes. Come on, can you get back down?
Stuart, I've always used foot as the benchmark for me when I'm jiving.
That you can, the what?
On the down guy, when diving, I've always used the foot as the benchmark, so it won't sky, but it gives me the room.
It depends on the size.
Easy to foot. Yeah.
Yeah, but what do you mean by the foot?
Use the down guy by a foot.
Oh, a
before I
foot.
jive.
Yeah. 6 inches a foot. Yeah. That's enough to where when you're done,
You don't need
there's a
a lot.
triangle that foredeck
A
can
foot and
work.
a half will sometimes allow.
That's too much.
All the way.
I go 6 inches. But on a day 27, 24, it makes sense a foot.
As soon as you're made from the mouth.
Okay, one thing that's real important downwind is there are 2 people driving the boat, and that's the driver, it's also the trimmer. And a lot of times the trimmer's driving the boat more than the driver. And they have to work together. You have to anticipate buffs. You have to anticipate bringing the pole back. We have a debate on my boat. I said, I'm not turning down till you bring the pole back. And the trimmer goes, here, Grant, well, I'm not pulling the pole back till you turn the boat down. Dude, I'm not turning the boat down till you pull the pole back. And I have the stick.
It's not a democracy.
It's a grant. I want it back too early, which and have it collapse, which forces me to go down. I'm waiting. I don't want to have you pull the pole, leave the pole forward, lose power, and then I get the power. No, get back and let me, so it's always kind of fun. It took about 4 years. He now, I've hit him a couple of times. Okay, so a lot of work with the driver and the trimmer, and then also, just real quick, then I got to move on, crew weight. And then the one little trick on the Chinese broke. But crew weight, downwind, you try to keep the boat flat. You sometimes want some weather heel. Anybody know why you want weather heel?
Project the spinnaker up.
Project the spinnaker out.
You get a little more projection. You can get the pole up. What else can you get?
Leeward helm.
You get helm that wants to do what you want it to do without turning the helm. What you have is a hull shape. It's a shape. And if you're at a heel, you have more force on the hull on one side than the other because water's traveling more because of the water line length. And what it induces is the front of the boat wants to go downwind. So you induce a little weather helm. So now I, as the driver, am not pushing the nose down the boat. I'm actually starting to push the boat the other way. It wants to go down, and I want to just keep it up. So again, reducing the amount of drag, and you could be surprised if you can actually sail the boat with just moving your weight back and forth. And it's real important. Another thing, downwind in lighter air, roll jibing. And that's moving the boat, letting it swing from one side to the other. It's very important. It does 2 things. Having more heel in the boat in lighter air allows that sail to breathe. Gravity is working in your favor. And then it also allows you to kick the boat. If you want a big swing in the keel. The keel is a wing. If you heel it over, and then everybody jumps on the boat does this, the keel goes whoop, and you maintain half a knot more than you would if you didn't roll jibe. And theoretically, it's illegal to roll jibe too many times in a row, because you can actually go faster than you can be, sailing. So those are just some little tricks. A little bit of movement is real important. Okay, so we all should work together. We know how that is. Treat your crew member nice. Sometimes. Or at least if you don't, buy them a beer later. Okay, we talked about deep powering. Oh, okay. What's the time? Okay, we're perfect. Who in their right mind, because I got to go to reaching and then some apparent wind and then we'll be done. Who in their right mind would say downwind and heavy air that you should apply more boom vane? Think about it. I would. And only in certain conditions. Normally you have hand on vane. I say hand on vane. I want to reach, the boat's going to want to turn and we're going to lay out the normal way. We're just going to, if that hand is not on the vane, I'm already too late. I'm usually telling the guy in the middle of the boat, you're driving the boat, not me. Dude, come on, because I'm done. The rudder's just, vane's got to be E, so it dumps the top so you could keep track. But in certain conditions, you're dead downwind, which is real scary in heavy air, because you're on the edge. You can't afford to go too far. There's lots of bad, like booms and stuff happening. And that's not good. But add the fact that now you have some waves, and the waves are coming off on the quarter.
And you're going to die.
That's right. And all of a sudden, I've always made a comment, guys, when I see the boom and the sun at the same time, I'm afraid. Because I've seen the boom and the sun. This is not right. So there's a condition because of the waves that are really working the boat to the Chinese side, to the weather side. And when that happens, it's very dramatic. But what's happening is you have a lot of force up top, and then the waves are turning you by the lead, which is putting the boom up. Well, how can you counteract that? Think about it downwind. How can you counteract that tendency to go to weather? You want more force in the main. You actually want the main to work more because the top of the boat is trying to make it go to leeward. If I put more power after, again, it's this. What's happening forward of the mast, after the mast. So in this condition, and this took me a little while to think about it, but it makes sense. More vang on. I need more power in the main to counteract what's happening in the chute to give me more stability. So it goes counterintuitive what you're first taught. But this is a very special case. But it does work. And then also put the jib up and put the tweakers down and everything else. That's the last resort. Okay. Ready to go to reaching. Apparent wind. We have to kind of speed through this. We talked about harbor hauler. Okay, it's not too bad. Apparent wind. I'm sure everybody knows a little bit about apparent wind, but it is kind of tricky. So I chose the reach to talk about apparent wind because it actually makes sense. You're going to get the maximum change in apparent wind related to the increase and the decrease of boat speed and wind speed. So if you are here and you are on a reach, you have the wind right on the beam, you have boat speed, VS, wind speed, and direction. This is true. So you have a velocity here and you have a velocity here. Then you can draw a line here. So the wind's blowing this way, the boat's moving this way. The apparent wind is what's coming across the deck.
Trigonometry just
We were going to talk when we get to the classic.
Geometry.
No wonder I thought you.
I got a little time window here. So because the boat has motion through the wind, you have a wind change. That's the motion of the boat. So this is X. X, X, X. Now, forget about the change in velocity of the boat. Think about only the change in, not the direction, just velocity. Now, we know we have true. So now all of a sudden the true wind speed, this is X, and this is Y. Nothing else has changed. The boat hasn't changed its speed or direction, and this is wind direction either. This is all important. Forget about all the variables. Velocity only. Well, if I draw this out again, now I draw this line. So what happened when the true wind went from X to Y? What happened to my apparent wind? Where, again, now we got to talk about a directional change. It moves aft. Here's your component, which is the increase in the speed, which is a little bit less than the increase of the true speed because of the angle, but the direction of that wind apparent to the boat has gone from here to here. So think about when you have a big puff and you're reaching. What is the first thing you do when the puff comes? If you're trimming the sails.
Ease a little.
Now you ask yourself why. Is it because of the change in angle of the apparent wind, or is it because of the puff itself?
Puff itself.
No, it's because of the change in the apparent wind. The puff is important because it's going to make the boat want to heel more. But now this angle changed so rapidly that now you're over trimmed. The sails are over trimmed. So you ease to immediately compensate for the shift in apparent wind. Once you've done that, then the boat will start to accelerate, and then what do you do with your sails?
Trim it back.
You start trimming it back in. Why? Because the apparent wind is slowly starting to move forward back on the boat. So that's what's really important to understand. Now, the second thing that is important is you do ease. It's really for the trim. But by easing and having maximum power because it's trimmed right, you also reduce the heel. If you're over trimmed, you're inducing more heel. So a lot of people think that I'm easing to reduce the heel, but technically, no, you're easing to keep the sail trimmed, which is a nice side effect to keep the keel down. And then, so that, knowing that right there is boat links on a reach. Now, also what happens here is your barber hauler. You need the sail further out, and you need the top of the sail to still work. So you try to move your lead out and use a barber hauler. This is real important to understand. It's a little hard, but it's not. Upwind, downwind, truly downwind, and truly upwind versus a reach. This reach really explains how this works. It affects downwind too. But there's so many more things you do with all of that. Your driver can do this. The apparent wind's always changing those angles. And the key thing is to try to keep the sails trimmed to the apparent wind. Any questions?
Stuart, to that point, I've heard before when you have your electronics dialed in, when you're racing, you want an apparent wind, not true wind. But how do you dial in your sails to apparent wind? Do you want the apparent wind to stay constant? Or
Turn the electronics off.
But it's not off.
I think electronics in general give you, especially on bigger boats, they give you some known facts or some known factors that are important because you know what certain angles certain sails can be used on, you know what certain velocities that certain sails can tolerate. There's a lot more of that going on in a big boat. On a small boat,
You just have to feel it.
you just run with it.
Okay.
If you look at your knot meter,
Yeah.
I
Never listen to instruments.
He believes that.
but I find, and I know you probably won't believe this, and I'm really not trying to embellish myself, but I have found myself sometimes on Sunday after a late Saturday night.
At the classic.
No, sometimes even in Corpus or where. And then we all get there, and I get on the boat, and we sail from the dock, and then I get about just far enough away that I really don't want to go back, and I go, where's the compass? You ever raced a whole day without a compass?
Yeah, you don't even want a compass, Stuart, we know you.
But I learned a lot, because if you don't have the device, you can't count on it. So then you have to start to use everything else you have. You can get the same information. The compass is important, but here in the lake, how many references do you have? You can go to the second break on the fourth. You know when you're up, you know when you're down, because you come around and you go, oh, I'm not pointing at the same building. So even on Corpus Christi Bay, there's enough markers, there's little smokestacks. And what happens is you really start to pay attention to that. So in general, I'm saying, don't lean on the instruments. You have to feel the boat, get in your butt. Okay. Apparent wind, any questions? Twist, we talked a little bit about twist. Okay, don't forget to power back up. Don't be afraid to do some radical things as you try to learn and apply this in light air. Just go pull the car way back, push the car way forward, pull the boom down, pull the bang on hard. Look at everything on the sailboat. You're touching this, but you're affecting something somewhere else. It's all connected to somewhere else on the boat. Pull the bang on really hard, or the backstay on really hard, and actually see what happens. What is sail trim and boat speed? Always go as fast as you can. We're getting rig setting, lead position, high tension, use all the controls.
Did you call it?
Always use the controls to depower as needed. Never forget to power up as conditions change. C, always go as fast as you can. Any questions? I'm right here.
Stuart, go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead and answer this.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I would be perfect.
Come on. Go ahead.
I kind of know the answer, but for a lot of other people, when you're when you're running the lines restart, you're usually out there a half hour, 45 minutes before everybody. Could you kind of go through the drill for everybody, what you're actually Stuart, yeah, he's self-employed.
Well, I work.
Kind of go through what you're looking at,
He's good.
what you do, and how you do it for everybody else to kind of think.
Sure. I mean,
Well, he knows I said the in favor.
I actually go by and say hi to Scott early too. It's consistency. It's the ability to reproduce. Can you reproduce the settings consistently that provide you the most power in the boat? Can you do it consistently? That wins races. In between races on a day where you have multiple races, can I reassess what I know, change the boat to match what's happening? That's real important. So what I do here is I flip around. Hey, it's windy. Hey, it's going to be this. Look at the current. This is all getting to the dock. Where's the current? Kind of just get an idea of what's going to happen. Make sure the rig's where I want it. Hit the course. Verify the current. It's a nice place to really check is the channel. Think about what that's going to do. It's really not a whole lot to do with sail trim. That's just more about, can I tack sooner, can I tack later, can I use the current to my advantage, or do I not want to fight the current? I should go over here. We will check the breeze pretty consistently in multiple places. Right around the island up here, you kind of need to know what it's going to do there. It's going to be squirrely. The further to the east, then there are some tricks to it. But then I always go to the point where the building is here. There's a big wind shift. A lot of us know about that point. And depending on exactly where the wind is, it can be advantageous. Then we'll go down to the starting area, and I don't necessarily check the breeze before, but the first thing I'll do is sail upwind and get the boat right. Just get the boat where it's right. And then also set the chute, because it's really nice to make sure you ran the boat right. Oh, look at that. Who did that? Oh, it was me, sorry.
You talking about me?
Yeah.
Check it.
So, then when you do that, you go around maybe 1 or 2 times, and then after that, you're done. So it's set. Then I go and think about the wind. and the main, up, the gym's down, and you'd be surprised. I'll go all the way to the west and check it, and then I'll go in the middle, and Scott will yell at me, and I'll go over here to this point, and then I'll sail back, and what you find is usually there's this kind of deal. It's little left, little right, and then you can see in the puffs, are they always a little left, or are they always a little right? So you just get a feel, harass a few of your friends, but then when it's time to sail, you want to, I usually tell my guys, all right, here's the plan. You know, I'm going to start by the boat, I'm going to start here, maybe this, and then if I don't end up where I'm at, just follow me because I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. You know, but always have a plan. Talk about what you intend to do. That way, if you're doing it, you don't have to think about it. You've already said, oh, if this happens, and this is where we're going to be, then everybody's in their mind kind of expecting that. It doesn't have to always happen the way you describe it, but it is real important to go through this consistently every race because it allows you to consistently do the right thing. So why start out at a disadvantage? Like I said, you can always go backwards in a sailboat. It's hard to go forward, so you need every advantage you can. Good start and speed changes the whole race. And it usually happens within the first 3 minutes. Sometimes here on the lake it's crazy, but in general, if you can punch out in 3 minutes, you have somewhat your destiny in your own control. Anything else?
Stuart? One of the things that I see observing from shore with the one design boats is I'll see the first time coming around, okay, this guy's ahead, and then they go away and go to the upwind mark and come back, and it's completely different. How are the positions changing that much? Well, somebody will have lost 6 boats.
Well, the lake can be pretty unforgiving. And some of it's random, some of it's, okay, a shift came in and it happens. If the fleet's large enough, you can't always cover everybody, so you have to decide, I'm going here or here, and then the guys in the back have an option. They can split from you, and that's how the dice roll. I think it's not necessarily boat speed that makes the difference. It's because of the local conditions, because of the amount of shifts that happen, because also people aren't paying attention. And you know, you may learn something a little bit of by watching the other boats and go, well, that really works. I think I need to try that. So sometimes it makes sense to split when you're behind, but sometimes it makes no sense to split. Sometimes you have to want to stay near the guy so you can maybe attack him downwind. So why does it change radically? You also have other classes and other situations and mistakes are made. A lot of times it's who makes the least amount of mistakes is the one that starts to show up, the next lap and the next lap. So the longer the race, the more chance to really, make a mistake.
A lot of stuff happens in the undesign at that first gate too. People just get in the wrong spot and all of a sudden find themselves.
Well, we're compressed. We're going to be compressed by design, and we're going to go about the same speed, and so that's a tactical issue. Sometimes slow the boat down, let it happen. Go through the carnage, avoid the wrecks as they happen. If you get in there, then you're stuck. Or I always have another saying: if you don't want to get into a protest or have a collision, then you just normally be in first place. It alleviates a lot of issues.
Start in front and stay there.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm saying there's definitely a lot of, I think I always label it as the little 10%, the last little 10% of stuff. I think we all sail, I'd say 70, 80%. Me, I think maybe more 70 side. And people like Stuart, Farley, Casey, these guys that were always nailing the top. Tom May, they're hitting that last 10%. And it's these little things that Stuart's talking about of, your backstay, your traveler car, your outhaul. Yeah, it may seem, on the lake, one design, 22s, you have 10 of you damn guys within 20 seconds of each other. But you think of, okay, if I was just 15 feet further in front, just little things, that little eighth of a knot downwind or something. It's just the little stuff of going along, and know your crew and your skipper what he's going to expect. If you're going for a beer cruise, don't put the shoe up. I mean, if you're going, if you're really going to be competitive, go into great detail. A couple of things I'll mention. As always, I try and help upcoming events. This weekend we have HYC's Midwinters. I'm going to run the pursuit line. I'm going to do a couple things a little bit different. And Sunday is going to be a longer course. And then we have Roy Shaw doing our PRO for a one design. So there's still time. There's no entry fee. There's still time to enter, even up to Friday night. If you don't want to check the weather, you don't really like the weather, whatever. I know we have, I think, 5 classes already set up on that line itself. So, come on out, enjoy. If y'all want to come out and look, come join me on the boat. Have some fun, watch people go round and round. March 7th, Lakewood's Bay Cup. Definitely enjoy that one. That's a good, little bit of a distance race. And then GBCA took the big leap of the area in moving their Performance Cup to the spring, March 21st. So that's going to be, if you have not done a GBCA event, God bless you. It's definitely a good course, good race. I think I have not talked to Chris or anybody running or putting that together, but if it's anything like last year, it's going to be one incredible event. So
Tomcats is the band. Good party.
Big party. Big party.
Good party.
So, maybe now this month, the next 3 weeks, all the clubs are putting together something. Chris?
Performance Cup is actually 2 days, Saturday and
It's Sunday. Great. Sorry, I was just saying the weekend of the 21st. So Saturday, Sunday. With that Midwinters is Saturday, Sunday. I think Bay Cup is just a Saturday.
Okay. 1 day.
I've yet to ever do that one, but hey. So, support the other clubs. Go through if y'all's schedule can do it. But we'll see you in 2 weeks. I'll do a kind of a short blurb on kind of lake tactics. I think Stuart covered some. And then 2 weeks ago we kind of got in a side bar conversation about maybe doing like a little mock protest hearing type. So John has some ideas of things to do. So it's got to give everybody a little bit of a kind of what a protest feels like. That way you don't be intimidated and just blow off stuff because you've never been there. Don't be afraid. If someone fouls you, go to the room, especially Javier. Yes. And that's actually the primary word right there.